Have you ever heard the canines, though, justification for eating meat? Well, here are 51 ways to counter it. A whole foods plant-based diet is clinically proven to prevent 14 of the 15 leading causes of death, treat most, and reverse 5, including killer number 1, heart disease. How can that be when so many claim that the human animal is an obligate omnivore? Some have gone so far as to say that we're optimized to a carnivorous diet. Let's examine the evidence from the anatomical, physiological, biological, and psychological standpoints to try to ascertain the truth of what we were born to eat. Carnivores seek weak, diseased, defective animals to eat because they are easier to catch. This is a good thing from their perspective because it strengthens the prey's gene pool, ensuring that food will always be available. Plant eaters seek lush, verdant, beautiful looking food because it will be of the highest nutritive value. Happily, it can't run off, so they can afford to be picky. What would happen if a carnivore were to have a herbivore's mentality? There'd be a huge risk of it not being able to catch its prey, expending valuable energy, and seeing it becoming too weak to hunt. If it did catch up, there'd be a greater chance of it becoming wounded in the struggle and unable to fend for itself going forwards. Even if this were a successful practice, the prey's gene pool would become weaker and weaker, eventually driving it to extinction. Do you fancy eating diseased flesh?
This is the testicle. Here at the bottom is this swollen growth, and I cut it open and I squeezed it a bit, and like this disgusting like yellow, orange, I don't even know, pale beige, greenish, putrid smelling liquid came out.
You are not a carnivore. A hungry carnivore happening upon a murder scene with blood and guts everywhere would become very excited indeed. A human, on the other hand, well, they would likely throw up. Carnivores have torpedo-shaped bodies built for speed, whereas human physiques are quite flat by comparison. Their center of mass is up front to aid in takedowns, whereas the human center of mass is down in the middle of the pelvis. Unfortunately for the carnivore, this makes movement more energy intensive. The human, putting their center of mass forwards of their base, can harness gravity to help them ambulate with a series of controlled falls. Some people simply refer to this as walking. This is useful if you spend many hours of the day out foraging for food. They have an armored front to protect from their prey kicking back at them. Padded shoulders and their internal organs are protected by their sternum and rib cage. The weakest parts of the animal, the abdomen and gonads, are the furthest back to protect from injury. Not so in the human, making the groin, liver and solar plexus great targets in a fight situation. They have a thick, muscular, sturdy neck, so once they sink their fangs into their prey, they can shake it and wrestle it to the ground without injury. Human necks, on the other hand, are prone to whiplash. They have forward deployed weapons. Teeth that are designed to slash and cut, and of course their claws are all up front so they can do what they need to do with the minimal of energy expenditure. If you think that simply labeling our teeth as canine that automatically makes them into fangs, then think again. Observe this image by the excellent vegan sidekick and consider that you've been a complete imbecile for your complete entire life up until this point. Carnivores can run up to 70 miles per hour. What's your top speed? They have a digitigrade stance, which means that they're up on their toes and always ready to run. This stance also increases stride length, making them faster. Do you stand and walk around on your tippy toes? Carnivore claws act like sprinter spikes, giving them greater traction, and are of course necessary to allow them to grab onto their prey. After all, they don't have opposable thumbs like we do. They have permanently flexed joints, meaning anytime they are standing, they are constantly in a runner's crouch, ready for the off. The downside of this is that it uses a great deal of energy, so much so that anytime they're not engaged in an activity, you will invariably find them laying down. If you can stand for extended periods with little effort, that's a good sign that your bones are supporting your weight and that you are not a carnivore. Carnivore legs are thin, light, and built for speed. Yeah, Frank, your legs are only thin because you're too lazy to train them. Their hearing is super acute, allowing them to detect their prey over massive distances. They can also hear a broader range of frequencies than we can. Their ears swivel independently, allowing them to pinpoint their quarry. Has anyone seen Spherage's ears spinning around like little radar dishes? Their eyesight is optimized for night vision. Typically, they can see 6 times better in the dark than a human can. This is because carnivores hunt mainly at night. Do you sleep in the daytime or mostly at night? Unlike plant eaters, carnivore eyes have what's known as a visual streak at the back of the retina. This linear area is of greatest vision acuity. It allows for the tracking of movement and the detecting of weak or injured animals. Instead of having a visual streak, human eyes have a small round pit known as the fovea. Although carnivores can see in the dark much better than humans can, their eyesight is of a very low resolution. The type of photoreceptors best suited to low light are rods, whereas for detailed vision, cones are optimal. Carnivores have lots of rods and very few cones, whereas for humans, the reverse is true. A carnivore's sense of smell is estimated to be at least 400,000 times stronger than that of humans. They can smell when an animal has cancer, some kind of infection, or a metabolic disorder that will make them easier to catch. Carnivores are remarkably sedentary, sleeping up to 20 hours a day. This helps them conserve energy in the long periods between meals. This also helps prevent their often fur-covered bodies from overheating during the day. All carnivores, save for hyenas, have a baculum, or penis bone. Note, this only applies to the males of the species. Men, save for first thing in the morning, or if you see someone that you're particularly attracted to, does it appear that you have a bone in your penis? Carnivores, with the exception of wolves and lions, are very solitary creatures. Humans, of course, are very social. Carnivores cannot see much in the way of colour, whereas humans have excellent trichromatic vision. We can see when leaves are lush and ready to eat, and when fruit is red and ripe. A carnivore's gestation period is only around 9 to 15 weeks. This allows them to continue to hunt during pregnancy. The human gestation period is 40 weeks, similar to other herbivores of our size. Hunting would be nigh on impossible. Carnivores generally give birth to litters of babies, whereas humans typically give birth to a single one. Carnivore babies are born with their eyes shut, whereas human babies have their eyes open. Carnivore milk contains 2 to 10 times more fat and 2 to 4 times more protein than human milk. Carnivores have far less facial muscle development than humans, allowing them to open their jaws up wide to grab onto their prey. The temporalis muscle, however, located on the side of the head, is massive, helping to prevent the jaw from becoming dislocated when attacking its prey. Masseter and pterygoid muscles at the back of the jaw are very small and underdeveloped, unlike those of a herbivore. Put the tips of your fingers here and bite down. That little twitch was your temporalis. Now put your fingers here and bite down. Those massive lumps are your masseters. Do you have the jaw muscles of a carnivore or a herbivore? Unlike humans, carnivore teeth are designed for ripping, tearing, and cutting. They cannot chew their food. The jaw has minimal side-to-side motion and cannot move forwards and back. Can you do this? Then you're not a carnivore. They release no enzymes in their saliva because their food is made from protein and fat. If they did release digestive enzymes into their mouths, they wouldn't have mouths for very long. Humans have a salivary enzyme called amylase whose sole purpose is to break down starch. Starch is only found in plants, so our mouths will be fine. Carnivore jaw joints are on the same plane as the cheek teeth, allowing the jaws to act like a pair of shears. The upper and lower carnassials slide completely past each other to slice flesh from bone and cut through tough hide and tendons. Do you have sharp, thin carnassials or blunt, flat molars? Can you get your upper and lower teeth to go past each other? Our jaw joint is above the level of the teeth. This characteristic is only found in animals that have committed to eating plants, as it would mean an easy jaw dislocation to try and bring down a moving animal. An animal with a dislocated jaw would die in nature. Carnivores have extremely powerful jaws. This allows them to wrestle animals weighing half a ton or more to the ground, dismember them, and crush their bones. Carnivore bite force has been estimated to vary between species from 300 to over 1,000 psi. Human bite force is a measly 135 to 150. Carnivores are forced to lap water up, whilst herbivore mouth structure allows them to suck it up. Is this the way you drink? A carnivore's esophagus is wide and easily distensible, allowing them to swallow large chunks of flesh without choking. According to the ear, nose and throat medical literature, over 90% of human choking fatalities are due to meat. The carnivore esophagus has voluntary muscle along its entire length. This means that they can regurgitate food for their young. Have you ever seen a human mother doing that? Animal tissues are quickly and easily digested but produce toxic byproducts, so carnivore GI tracts are very short. A carnivore's stomach is extremely acidic when filled with food, having a pH of less than 1. That's battery acid level. It can dissolve bone, hooves, hide and tendons. A human's, on the other hand, would have a pH of 4 to 5. Their stomachs are extremely large, totaling 60 to 70% of total gut capacity, whereas a human's is less than 25. They can eat 20 to 30% of their total body weight at a single meal. This is necessary to make hunting practical due to its inherent inefficiency. 95% of the time, hunting forays are unsuccessful. Carnivores, because of their highly acidic stomachs, have the ability to eat carrion, putrefying, bacteria-laden, stinking flesh that's likely crawling with maggots. Doesn't sound appetizing to you? You're likely not a carnivore. Ever suffered food poisoning after eating meat or fish? You're likely not a carnivore either. Their small intestine is very short, only 3 to 4 times their body length, whereas a human's is 10 to 11 times. They predominantly produce protein and fat digesting enzymes, whereas humans produce an adjustable mix of protein, fat, and carbohydrate digesting ones. Carnivores can consume massive amounts of fat, trans fats, and cholesterol without forming atherosclerosis in the blood vessels, while heart disease is the #1 killer among humans. They are able to go long periods between meals without their mucosa involuting and becoming non-absorptive. Contrast that with humans that, having not eaten for 3 to 4 days or more, cannot eat a full meal without being sick. When we don't eat for several days, the cells that line our intestines lose their ability to retain water while absorbing nutrients. Putting lots of food into the intestines under these circumstances pulls fluid from the bloodstream into the guts, causing diarrhea. This causes blood pressure to drop too low, putting us into shock and potentially killing us. At the end of World War II, many Allied troops sadly died this way after being liberated from concentration camps. Carnivores have a poor ability to digest and absorb carbohydrate, whereas we have an unlimited capacity. Unlike that of humans, the carnivore colon is short to allow for quick expulsion of fecal matter. Due to the lack of fiber, the bacteria found here are pathogenic. They make toxic compounds like ammonia, putrescine, cadaverine and cresol from animal protein residues, so they don't want their fecal matter hanging around. And finally, most ecosystems, with the exception of Arctic regions, can support many more herbivores than carnivores because there is so much more food available. At 8 billion individuals, humans display the population characteristics of social herbivore species. No obligate omnivore or carnivore species could exist in such high numbers. The Earth would simply not sustain it. The largest, strongest, and longest lived of all animals are now and have always been herbivores. Just a little something to think about when you sit down to your next meal. Now click this